being here tonight. I hope we get you some great information. And if you'd all please stand and join the board in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. First order of business on our agenda tonight is to approve our consent agenda. Are there any items that the board would like to remove from the consent agenda? If not, entertain a motion to approve it as submitted. It's been moved. Do I have support on the consent agenda? Support. Okay, very good. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Nays, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. Deanna, do we have any additions or deletions to our agenda this evening?
I don't know.
And I would entertain a motion to approve it as submitted, please.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Support. Made and supported. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Nays, nay. Motion carries. Item 5 this evening is our citizens' comments portion for our agenda this evening, but this is on non-agenda items. If you have a question or actually a comment on anything non-agenda, if you would please address the board, give your name and address, please, and if we could limit comments to about 3 minutes. Mark, go ahead.
First, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. This is awesome, seeing this many people here.
It is.
Secondly, I'd like to question the board for the umpteenth million time on the situation we have going across the street. This is going to affect my water very soon. Has the board reached out and touched with any representatives to help us with this situation?
The DEQ and the health department I have, and if, as a matter of fact, I asked them if they would have any, if you would have any questions after we're done talking about the parchment PFAS, or if you'd like to talk to them afterwards, they'd be happy to talk with both.
Well, for all the people here that may not know, we have a very large corporation in Kalamazoo, extremely wealthy, bringing their shit out here in Cooper Township and dumping it under the skies of a farming operation. And we can't get any information because it's all hidden under MDARD. And, you know, we can't seem to get anything. And all these people are here because their water's screwed up. My water's next. And I've asked this board and asked this board and asked this board, there has to be something to do. I touched out with you 2 weeks ago and said if there was ever an opportunity to do something about this, the opportunity is now. You have everybody listening.
Exactly. And I've reached out to them, and they may have some extras for you tonight. I don't know.
Well, you know, the township can do a lot to a lot of little people and tell little people what to do, but they seem to not be willing to stick their neck out and grab a hold of a potential problem. This is how Grand Rapids and north of Grand Rapids, their problem existed, was oh, it's great, and then it ended up getting spread all over everybody's farm, and now you have all these subdivisions that used to be farms where they spread all this stuff, and that's what's going on here. This stuff is not being contained to that piece of property. It is being spread all over Cooper Township. And I think everybody should know what's going on. And I appreciate everybody coming, and hopefully somebody will follow up along with me. I asked this question last month, and it didn't get recorded as such. I've asked this question every month. For how many years, Jeff?
Understand.
How many years?
Since it's been there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else like to address the board on a non-agenda item?
And, you know, my name is Shirley Collins, and I live on Westy Avenue. I have to agree with everything he just said. Maybe somebody will finally listen, because look at the people here. These guys are here from Parchment and Cooper side of Parchment.
I know.
But we live on this side. And we also used to have the dump down on D Avenue. Where's that? It's covered up. But what has that done to our water?
Question. Thank you, Shirley. Anyone else? Yes.
Should I approach the mic or?
If they can hear you, you don't have to.
All right, my name is Scott Markham, I live at 3837 Patty Circle. I have two just real quick comments. My first comment is, I was really disappointed with the special assessment, the sewer project, because I am in favor of the folks who live west of Riverview, north of G Avenue, having a sewer system. I would have voted in favor to spend a few more of my tax dollars to make sure that those folks down there would get a sewer system, because their septic is 3 and 4 times what mine is. I live up the hill.
Yep.
I was disappointed to see it expand into a project kind of forced on folks who didn't need it. I wish it would have been contained just to those folks, because I feel like they really could have benefited from it, and I think maybe their neighbors would have chipped in to help out and pay for that, because they really do need it. Their septic systems are $20,000 to $25,000 a piece. So the second thing I just want to put out there as a comment is, I disagree with the bond proposal to pay for a cleanup. I know our state senator advocated for that. I disagree with that. Essentially, that would be a tax on the working folks in this community. I think that DEQ, EPA, and any of the responsible parties who, engaged in the pollution, wherever they may be, wherever that trail leads, parent companies that have bought them out, whether they're bankrupt or not, somebody bought out their property in a lot of cases of those companies, even after they went bankrupt. So I don't support a bond proposal for the taxpayer to pay for that cleanup. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Absolutely, you bet. Thank you. Anyone else?
I've got one quick thing.
Okay.
Mark Reynolds, 6844 Springbrook, and as most of you probably know, I was appointed to the South Central Michigan Planning Council in December of last year, and we framed up our 2019 goals, and one of the goals is for communities to understand what grants are available. And what I did was I kind of took a deep dive into the F-65 reports. I'm sure all of you are very familiar with the F-65 reports. It kind of highlights a lot of information, but part of that is the amount of grant monies communities have attained over the years. You can go back and look at these F-65 reports over the last 10 years. I looked just the last 5 years, and just within Kalamazoo County, of the 15 townships I looked at, it's kind of a wide range of success, if you will. Oshtemo kind of leading the way with about $4.4 million of realized grants, and Cooper somewhere in the neighborhood of about $58,000. And most of that grant money is associated with the non-Act 51 kinds of road and street repair money. So I'm excited to be part of the South Central Michigan Planning Council and help communities within the 4-county region, St. Joe, Branch, Calhoun, and Kalamazoo, understand what grants are available, how to apply for them, and really increase prosperity in region number 3 in the state of Michigan. There are 14 planning regions, and those 4 counties, to include Cooper Townships, in the region number 3. So I got some information here that talks about what the objectives are for the South Central Michigan Planning Council, and I also worked up kind of a bar chart that shows the success of communities who've received grants over the last 5 years. So hopefully that's helpful.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we will move on to Fire Department report. You have your chief's report and your assistant chief's report. I'm happy to say, and I would like to congratulate our assistant chief and one of our firefighters, Dion. They have obtained a wellness grant, and the total award is $20,909. So you can add that to our list of grants, and excuse me, that will help in providing physicals to all our firemen this year. So, Terry, anything to add to your report?
Just let you know that
Stand, please.
it is on there about 2 of our firefighters resigning because they moved out of our township. So we are going to be conducting the interviews with some of the applicants that we got now. So.
Very good, thank you. Assistant Chief Clock, anything that you'd like to add to your report this evening? Thank you so much for your hard work on that.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, very cool. Board members, any questions of our fire department staff this evening? Hearing none, then we will move on. I would like to introduce some folks here tonight that are going to give a brief presentation and are here to answer questions when they are done. We have with us here this evening Vern Johnson, Matt Johnson from Kalamazoo County Environmental Health, Corey Gretsch and Jordan Bailey, they're from the Michigan State Health Department, Dr. William Nettleton, Kalamazoo County Medical Director, and Dave Hayward from the DEQ. I know I'm missing someone. Dave Harn.
Could you
Yes,
please
Dave
have those
Harn.
people stand up and identify
Yes,
themselves?
that's
Could you say
fine.
the new word again, please?
Thank you.
Dave Harn. Dave Hewitt.
Jordan Bailey.
Corey Gretsch. Hi, I'm Vern Johnson.
Dr. Bill Nettleton.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to you, Dave. Thank you. And also, I'd like to make known that Senator Margaret O'Brien is here tonight. She has been a very integral part of the success of getting us water. On the very first night that this came about on July 26th, she actually notified me about 5 o'clock that this was going on. And with a couple of phone calls, by 2 o'clock in the morning, we had our first 10,000 cases of water on site at the high school. And she was there at 5:30 in the morning unloading with the rest of us. And she was there every single day at the water pod, the pod being the point of distribution. And just would like to thank her very much for her efforts. It is an election year for her, but Parchment and Cooper is a very small area of her district. So I thank you for giving your time to us. Appreciate it very much. Okay, we're ready to answer.
All right.
If they can't hear you, I do have a handheld mic.
I think I will be able to talk loud enough. If I can't, just let me know. I'm not sure about the color difference here, but I think we can still see everything we need to. So Jeff asked me to do a brief, very high-level overview of what we've been doing for the Parchment and the Cooper Township water response since the discovery of PFAS in the city's water system. So I'm going to give you kind of, again, a real high-level overview, and as Jeff indicated, I'll be around afterwards. If you have more specific questions that you want to ask, we'll be happy to answer those for you. So updating what we've done. So since July 31st of this year, right after the PFAS was discovered in the city of Parchment's water system, I'm going to focus on the residential well aspect of this. The city water system is a whole nother story, but we're not going to really delve into that at all tonight. We initially looked at 25 residential wells just as a first hit after the problem was discovered. To date, though, as of today, we got information. We've sampled 211 residential wells out of the 271 that we've canvassed. So we've visited 271 different people to get water samples. We've gotten 211 samples, 3 from irrigation wells. There are still 53 locations that we have canvassed but have not been able to get samples from yet. We've had 4 people that have declined to have any sampling done when we've met with them. To date, we've received 207 of those 211 results, plus the 3 irrigation wells. This is a summary of kind of what we're seeing, and I'll show you a map of this as well in the next couple of slides. So when we look at the samples that we've actually had analyzed, 49 of them have been non-detect, so no PFAS compounds that we are testing for have been identified in 49 of the samples. In 40 of the samples, we've had a total PFAS, so that's all of the compounds that we're looking at, that have been above 70 parts per trillion. That's the unit of measure we're using for these compounds, is parts per trillion. And then when we look at very specifically the 2 main PFAS contaminants or compounds that we regulate, PFOS and PFOA, we've had 15 that have exceeded 70 parts per trillion. So that 70 number is key because that's the number that's set as the lifetime health advisory. So when you look at the 40 that we look at total PFAS, Out of that 40, we've had 15 of them that have had PFOS and PFOA that are above 70 parts per trillion. Just to give you an idea of the scope of what we've been doing. So that red circle, everybody's kind of familiar with that from the get-go of the whole project. There was a 1 mile radius that was drawn. This one is actually looking out a little farther, but that radius was drawn. Everybody was familiar with that. These show up as green on my computer, but you can see those are the spread of the wells that we've sampled, residential wells again, that we have sampled. There are some irrigation wells that are also on there. If the color showed up a little better, you'd also see there are 53 people where we've canvassed but haven't gotten sampling scheduled with them. And then there are a few that have just declined to have samples collected. When we look at a representation of the results, so this map is showing you total PFAS, and there are different colors that are represented on these maps for each of the dots. We go from green, which is non-detect, and then we're looking at a yellow, an orange, and a red. The red being the ones you're probably most interested in. Those are the ones that are total PFAS are greater than 70. And then the orange and the yellow are just distinctions within that from above non-detect to less than 70. You've just got a different shading for those. So it kind of gives you a broad picture of where we're seeing the impacts and at what approximate levels. And then if we switch over and just look at PFOS and PFOA, that's what this map is representing. So we're not worrying about, we're only looking at the two compounds in this particular case. Same general color scheme, the red representing where your PFOS and PFOA are greater than 70, and then below 70 but above non-detect would be your yellows and your oranges. Green would be your non-detect. So the question, a lot of people are asking, so what are we doing? What's going on moving forward? So the first thing that I want to look at would be hydrogeologic study. So what is a hydrogeologic study? We're trying to get a sense of what the geology of the area is, what the groundwater depth and flow direction is, and what is the distribution of the contamination. So we're using residential wells to assess immediate risk to people, because that's how we get exposed to this, is through drinking it. But now we also want to know, where is it? Where is it beyond these residential wells? Wells aren't the best way for us to determine the full extent of contamination. It just tells us about exposure that people have drinking that water. So this hydrogeologic study is going to try and answer some of those questions. So we got a lot of things going on in this map. This is showing those sample locations again with the dots that we just looked at. If you can kind of see, there's the half of that 1.5 mile radius that's shown. It comes back to the river and then follows up the river. There's also this purple line right here that's dotting its way around. So what we've done is we've taken the information that we have so far based on the residential wells, and we've drawn a study area where we seem to have found low levels of PFAS, total PFAS in residential wells. And we're using that purple boundary to kind of give us a guide as to where we need to go in and put in monitoring wells and do investigation to try and see where is the contamination distributed through that aquifer. And that purple line could expand based on what we find. It's just a starting point for us to try and get a handle on areas where we don't have a whole lot of wells that we can go to, so we can actually look at what's in the groundwater beyond the residential wells. We also, when we had the public meeting, we talked about potential sources. That's part of what this hydrogeo study would do, is help us identify where some sources may be. So we've just kind of called those out with these different shaded areas. The intent of what we're doing is to try and confirm as well those sources, whether they may or may not be contributing to what has happened. But our work will include looking at those areas as well. And then based on all of this work, as we're gathering data and it's coming into us, we would expand and do additional residential well sampling if needed. So if we put in some wells and we find we still have PFAS in the groundwater and there are wells, residential wells nearby, we can expand our study area to encompass those residential wells. And then, as I talked about, we're also continuing to look at potential source areas with this study. If you have any questions or further information, again, I'll be here through the meeting, at the end of the meeting to answer some questions. This is my contact information, cell phone number, and my email address. And then also remember, you can always go to the state's PFAS response page at michigan.gov/PFAS response.
What I think I'm gonna do, David, is in audience is this. I'm gonna have the Department of Public Health speak now, and then when we're done, everybody will be here for questions, and that way they can get through whatever information they wanna give, and it may answer some of your questions. If not, then we can be here as long as necessary to make sure that you get the information that's available to you, so.
Dave, would you be able to send the presentation to me and I can put that on our website for folks that couldn't come to the meeting?
I will get that to you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
So I'm Jordan Bailey. I'm a toxicologist with the State Health Department, and the State Health Department has been working with your local health department to address.
Speak up.
Yep, I'll grab the microphone.
If it's off, just hold the bottom.
Okay.
It's on.
Okay, I'm Jordan Bailey, a toxicologist with the State Health Department, and the State Health Department has been working collaboratively with your local health department to address public health concerns in this area, including offering alternate water sources for individuals in this area. So what I want to do now is really explicitly describe what the health departments have done to address what we know about the contamination in this area. Perfect. So now that the municipal water supply has been switched over to Kalamazoo Supply, our primary priority is to ensure private drinking well owners are receiving either alternate water or information about their water source. So right now, what we've done is based on the information that was just described to you by Dave at the DEQ, we've been able to using what they know about, why don't you just go on to the map? Using what they know about groundwater contamination in the area and their identification of an area of concern, which is outlined in purple. We have offered filters to everyone in that region, and then individuals who are just outside of that region but are pretty close to that area are being offered bottled water. And that will continue until the hydrogeologic study that Dave just described is complete. Because presumably after that study is complete, we will know and we'll be able to speak to the quality of the water in that region outside of the primary area of concern. Now for the area of concern itself, like I said, individuals have been offered filters for now, and a permanent solution, i.e. hooking up to municipal water, is being planned. So if you would like to speak about some of the specifics.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So my name is Vern Johnson. I'm the Environmental Health Manager for your local health department in Kalamazoo. And our role in this response is to be your advocates, answer questions. And we have Dr. Will Nettleton here today. He's answered and he has taken a lot of phone calls regarding health questions that are very real and very much on your minds, and we understand that. We've had our call center receiving calls from you. I don't know if anybody's called the call center, but my staff has been there answering questions on a day-to-day basis. Ever since the 26th of July when this took place, we've been there and we've taken your questions about, hey, can I get my well sampled, to what about bottled water? How do I get bottled water? That type of thing. So we've been there all along. We're going to stay here with you until this is completed. So let's go to the next slide. I'll do that. So as of to date, so this started really on the 26th of July. So on the 27th, as Mr. Sorensen has pointed out, bottled water was provided, and definitely I echo the comments about Senator Margaret O'Brien. When I came to the Sheriff's Department and our first meeting on the 26th, she looked at me, she said, can you use 10,000 cases of bottled water? And it's like, yeah, I think we can. And so I appreciate you've been there, and you've been a lifeline to Lansing for us. I appreciate that. So we've made sure all the way till the 30th that bottled water were available to you residents in the pod that we had at the high school, as well as Haven Reformed Church. So the amazing thing is that on the 27th of July, both the systems, Parchment and Cooper Township, or not Cooper Township, but Kalamazoo, were connected. That's pretty amazing that both municipal systems were connected at that short of time, within hours. And we know that the water is safe to drink, and we lifted the advisory on August 26th. So to date, and I'll go back, Jordan, can you bring back that slide here in a second? We have distributed 234 point-of-use filters to the impacted residents in that purple area that I'll go back to. We have also signed up 175 residents to receive Gordon water service. And has anybody received that came out last Thursday and Saturday? And so that's going to continue on until the investigation is over by DEQ. We're not going anywhere. You'll continue to receive that bottled water until after DEQ has finished the study to find out the impact of the contamination. So we're going to hang with you on that. So can you go back to that map? So again, the filters that we gave out are to all the residents on a well that are in this target impacted area. That is a higher focus of DEQ to take a look at the contamination. You can see all of the tests that they've run. Outside of that, and this is really hard to see, but you've got this green dashed area, that's who is getting the bottled water. And we're giving the bottled water, again, not because we think that there's a high risk of contamination in an area, but we just don't know. And if we don't know, let's give the bottled water out until DEQ finishes their hydrogeological study so that we do know. We can communicate to you some facts. So that's what your local health department is doing, and again, we're here. We're not going anywhere. We're going to stay with you until this investigation is fully over, until we know something. Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of underscore some of those points and say that I brought my business cards here. I'm happy to give those out to anyone here. If you have questions about health concerns that come up, I am more than happy to speak to you at length, either tonight or if you think of questions later. I'm very happy to receive any phone calls or talk more about this. And just so that you all know, we are here for you, and we are definitely here to talk about health concerns that you may have and talk about the actual response that's being done as well.
Yeah, and I'll be around as well if you have any questions. I do want to, if I left out your township supervisor, I want to say a big thank you. Jeff has been there from the very start of this and has worked his tail off right alongside state agencies, local public health, and it was tireless work, and I'm grateful for it, so thank you.
Thank you.
If all of you here from the health department, if you have business cards, if you would give them to our clerk, and that way that information can also go on our website as well. Thank you. At this point, is there any other parts of presentations from the health department or the DEQ, or if not, then how I would like to do this is open up the questions. If you can stand and be heard, you don't need to come to the mic, and if you would please list your name and your address, if you would, for us, if you have questions, and your questions will be answered by the appropriate individual that's from the appropriate agency. So.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Hampton. I'm from Western Michigan University. Question is for David Harn. Could we have that map of the study area? The area of the hydrogeologic study. Yes.
That one?
Conspicuously outside the area is Spring Creek. Would you like to?
Here, you mean?
That's correct.
Springbrook.
Springbrook, my bad. Is there some reason why you've drawn the dash line where you have basically not including that hydrogeologic boundary?
So part of what's missing that may help you answer that question or give you some information is, the plan is to look at installing wells along this area. And so we're looking at areas that we can access with drill rig, a geoprobe, some sort of machinery. So it's very difficult to get into that area, short of,
It's very wet and marshy.
yeah, it's gonna be, so we're not ignoring it, but we're also trying to be realistic in where we can get to. But there are, the plan is, because we also have a lot of concerned people up here along Springbrook Drive, and so we're trying to get information. We have a fair amount of sampling that was done here along McKinley and in that area. And so we're trying to gather some information to see, do we have something that's heading off into that direction? And we're just trying to get into places where we can actually put monitoring wells. So what's missing off of this is kind of our thoughts and where those wells would go, because it's going to, a lot of it's going to depend on what we can get access to, property-wise, in with machinery easily.
Your western boundary is the river.
For now, yeah.
And the reason for that is you think that's probably the extent of contamination?
Well, we're looking at the river as kind of being the sink for both sides, so
Right.
the east and the west. Part of, the hydrogeo study is to get it a better handle on groundwater flow. But right now, we're kind of working with the assumption that the Kalamazoo River is the deposition point for the groundwater flow in the area.
Wouldn't that logic also apply to Springbrook?
Yeah. So again, we're not ignoring it in terms of, it's just the access to get into that area is very limited.
And then there's a number of red dots sort of in the center of the dashed area.
Kind of right in here.
And there's a boundary which is just to the right of some of those red dots.
So this is the extent of the municipal water system.
I'm talking about the dashed purple line.
This one right here.
Right.
Yeah.
That's typically when one does a hydrogeologic study, one wants to completely identify the affected areas. And it seems like you're kind of pushing that boundary. There's no clean spots between the red and that boundary. It would seem that you would want that boundary to be further to the east in order to make sure that you've captured anybody who might be affected by contamination.
And it may go more to the east.
So that's
it's
a
very
fungible boundary.
Oh yeah, the boundary is not set in stone. So it's just a starting point for us.